I'm Nick Harcourt, your host. It's 89.9 kcrw. Morning becomes eclectic. I'm excited to tell you that we have Ryan Adams with his band The Cardinals on the show today, and Ryan's just going to have a little bit of a chat with us. First of all, thank you for doing the session.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's morning and I feel very eclectic.
Well, good. You're in the right place at the right time. Well, let's talk about the new album. It seems to be the obvious place to start, Easy Tiger. Where did you make the record? When did you make the record?
The record was made in New York City over the course of about a year, and it's really hard to say when, because I suppose it started in 2006 and finished sometime in 2007, about a week before it was due, or maybe a few days. And it was one of those things where the Cards and I were touring pretty consistently, and you know, started dropping in on some new compositions and songs, and they started growing, and we started growing around them, and it's kind of a unusual situation for me anyway, where these songs kind of started happening more or less to the band because they were filling in our sets where we were already really having a good time, and they were just adding to that. And so, you know, by total accident, the album took time.
So is it fair to say then that the songs pretty much came together on the road and they were ready by the time you recorded them, or did you record them at different times over that period of time?
Yeah, well, they sort of changed what I assumed that they were, and early on, and as well as I think maybe some of the guys in the band, you know, we would sort of try something out, and then, you know, we toured pretty consistently, so they kept modulating and changing and maybe getting deeper, and if anything, they sort of simplified, which is pretty unusual. For me, the whole process was unusual, that it seemed that the more we played them, the more essential the parts became and the greater they became, because we weren't adding, we were subtracting things. So I kind of feel sort of, I mean, I was shocked at that process, because for me it's usually like write the tunes and then record them pretty much immediately, and then there's a lot of bravado and very much I'm very into sketches in the moment, and, you know, maybe like sort of a Toulouse-Lautrec type idea of the painting doesn't need to be finished, so that way people will finish it in their own minds. But these songs kind of they had a lot of muscle and meaning to everyone in the band, and so I think that as time went on, it was almost, it felt to me that, like any good relationship, the dialogue decreased and the meaning increased with fewer things said, and those songs got tough. They got really, really tough without needing a lot of extra stuff. You know, there wasn't much that needed to be added. So I think that just let that unfold, and then caught it whenever they got the cleanest. You know,
why was it different for you this time? Why do you think that this shift happened in the way you record? Because you've recorded a lot of songs, you've written a lot of songs, you're renowned as being a prolific songwriter and a recorder of songs as well.
Right.
Why different this time?
For all intents and purposes, I'm a cardinal now, so I'm, you know, my job is 1/6.
So it's because it's a band now rather than just you doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you know, the process has changed mainly because of Neil and mainly because of Jamie, because both of these guys really appreciate taking their time and letting things relax, and I don't know. I suppose it's just one of those things, you know, like the collaborative measure that happens on the tunes. I'm actually willing to be more patient, because I know that the outcome will be greater than the sketch, whereas in the past I was fine with the sketch. But if someone else has an idea, if maybe Neil wants to work on a part or Jamie wants to get a more relaxed performance, I'm willing to wait to see their intellectual idea realized, whereas mine could be completely different. but it's more exciting, you know.
And we should point out that you're talking about Neil Casal and Jamie Candelaro, who play with you in the band, as well as who else we got in today? Brad, Chris, John. But you've also gone through some other changes in your life which have to impact this. The most obvious being, of course, that you're clean and sober these days.
Right.
That's got to have an impact on things.
Not really. I mean, I always kept business and pleasure separate, and the times that they were mixed was really when I had that when I felt like I had an opportunity where it wasn't going to damage anything. But I always have taken, I've always taken, you know, the work very seriously, and if anything, in the past, I think because I was in my 20s and because I felt very kinetic, had a lot of kinetic energy, like anyone would have, I suppose, when they are younger, and I wanted to apply it to its. I just wanted to apply myself as best as I could, and if anything, in the past, I think that, you know, whatever I experimented with was like off the clock. It wasn't really like part of. It wasn't really part of the work, you know.
But what about subject matter for writing? I mean, does that change? Does that shift?
Not really. I mean, I suppose that it's okay to assess it that way, because it would seem like that should be real. If a person goes through a change where they don't drink anymore, don't take drugs anymore, it would be a change. But you know, I wasn't an active junkie or alcoholic in that. You know, I didn't use during the day. Like I didn't consistently stay high. You know, it was something that I did from time to time, the way people do, and they just go to that because that's there and there's nothing else going on. But if anything, the ideas that I had when I was high, they were all pretty funny. They didn't really, you know, like Magnolia Mountain didn't happen. You know, I wasn't writing that with a Coors Light, you know, and doing lines of coke off of, like, you know, Gary Shandling. You know what I mean? It was like totally like.
There's a mental image. Thank you for that.
No, but I mean, like, I totally was like applying myself, you know, and you know, just you know, there's a thing that happens. I think there would have been a slowing down anyway, because I'm 32 now. But I think that there's this. I think that just there's this idea about, or there was this idea for me about, you know, what to do with my free time as a musician, and especially because, you know, I chose to just do this so intensely for my whole life that the moments where there wasn't other stuff going on, it isn't like I didn't have an incredible amount of options, you know, to really be, you know, participating in what would be viewed as a normal life. It's just a lot of waiting around.
So do you think then that being in your 20s is a time when, I mean, for everybody, not just you, where you can go nuts, try and get through it, and by the time you hit 30, there's something shifts, or is it just luck?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's different for everyone, you know, and for me,